friends, it's Kathy Clement with Kathy by Design, and this is Throwback Thursday. This little weekly series, I dig back into my stash of older paper collections, products, supplies, techniques, ideas, and we make something fresh and beautiful together. Mother's Day is right around the corner, and if you're scurrying for a project, I thought we would put together a really sweet little tea party in a box folio using Graphic 45's Cottage Life. This came out in 2022, so a lot of you probably still have it in your stash, and it's perfect for Mother's Day. So I have bits and pieces of the 12 by 12. I have bits and pieces of the 8 by 8. I have some chipboard, some die cuts, some journal cards left, and we're going to make something beautiful together. So we're going to begin by building our folio base, and as you can see, I've already gotten started. The first thing I did was I cut two 6-inch by 11-inch panels of this blush cardstock. I wanted it to be almost cream, just to go with these beautiful vintage colors. So on one of the 6-inch sides, I put 1/4-inch score tape and joined it together, and then just press that down, and you get this big long panel of cardstock, and this is how you build your folio. So then place it on your scoring tool. You're going to score at 6 and at 6 3/4. Then you're going to fold, and you're going to score at 6 and 6 3/4 again. Then you're going to fold, and you're going to score at 3 3/4 and 3 3/4, and you're going to have this little tiny flap left over. So this folds in like this. So you have a 3/4-inch spine on the right and a 3/4-inch spine on the left, and you have a little book that looks like this. Then I cut 4 5 7/8-inch panels of my cardstock and of my designer paper, and you will use whatever you're working with. I have bits and pieces left of 8 by 8 and 12 by 12 and patterns and solids. So from the 12 by 12, I used this beautiful tone on tone. And from the patterns and solids, I used this text print. And I went with the blue because I want this to be pink and blue. From my scraps, I cut 5/8-inch by 5 7/8-inch pieces for 3 of the spines. This spine we're not going to address yet. And you can see I've put my patterned paper down, but not on the front. And that's because I like to build my front separate from the folio. It just makes it so much easier to complete the folio, and it protects the front cover. So over here, I did a slash pocket, and I had found in my scraps, and I don't know what this was from, but I had cut a corner piece, like almost like I had taken a square and cut it from corner to corner. So that's exactly what you can do. Cut a 5 1/4-inch square of your paper. I used this pink from the patterns and solids, and then I just scored a 1/2 inch along this side, a 1/2 inch along this side, and I measured over 3/4 of an inch, and I cut from that mark down to this bottom corner. And then you fold and trim out your corner. And I actually glued this around the back side of my paper panel, okay? So that's kind of the basics there. What I want to do now is install our box pocket. So I've cut from that same cardstock. This is an 8 1/4 by 3 1/2-inch piece of cardstock. And I've scored it at 5/8 and 5/8, and then I turned it and I scored it on this side at 5/8 and 5/8, and then on the bottom I scored it at 5/8 and 5/8. Why 5/8 instead of 3/4? Because it will fit inside this 3/4-inch spine if you make it just that tiny little bit smaller. So now we're going to make our pocket together. We've done this many times, but I like to repeat it from time to time for people who are new. So you're going to cut up from this outside score line on each side, and just completely trim out this rectangle. And this is easier, it's easier to cut before you fold. That's why I do it this way. Sometimes when the paper is folded, it's harder to cut straight, or it's harder for me to cut straight, so I do it this way. Now you're going to come back in, and you're going to come on this second score line, and you're going to cut straight up to this top horizontal, and then you're going to come back to the bottom, and you're going to cut like a little skinny triangle out. And this makes a tab. And repeat this on this side. So you're cutting from the bottom up to the second score line, and then you're coming back, and you're cutting in a little skinny triangle to make a tab. Now you can take your bone folder and crease all of these scored lines. And you can leave your tab. Don't bother folding your tab. It's going to stay one piece. And you want to fold these in. Okay? So now lay your pocket face down on your work surface, and you can see the bumpy side where I've scored is on the inside. That's how you want that to be. Take your tabs and fold them up and crease them. Make sure they're nice and straight. I can see on this one I need to trim just the tiniest bit right here in this corner. I didn't get that quite trimmed out. And you'll be able to see, because there'll be like a little weird overhanging piece. But now that I've trimmed that out, we look really good. And I'm going to take my adhesive, and I'm going to put adhesive on this tab right here, and on this tab right here. Then we're going to roll our sides in, and we're going to push that tab into the corner so that our corner is neat and square. And you're going to do this on each side. So see how everything matches up nice and neat and square. That's what you want to do. Then this part, that outer score, we're going to put adhesive right here. And adhesive, I'm trying to move this so you can see what I'm doing, right here. And we're going to fold this up and press it in place. Again, keeping everything neat and square. You want to make sure your sides are straight, all those things. This is what makes for a good box pocket. Make sure your bottom comes up all the way. So now we've got this box pocket that fits perfectly inside our folio. Okay? And we're just going to take our adhesive, put it on the sides, that looks really good. And now I'm just going to come in with my bone folder. I'm going to press this into place. So see, now this will fold over this, and this will fold over this, and this is what we have at this point. So now we're going to do this little inside flap page. And the first thing I did was just glue this little 3/4 inch piece over. It makes a nice sturdy edge, and it's just how I think it's going to work well that way. So 3 3/4 by 5 7/8 of our text, and then I cut from my 12 by 12 from this top left-hand corner. I cut this little tip-in page to 4 by 5 7/8, And I'm going to wrap this around my page. Just like this. I'm going to put a little thin bead of adhesive down the side. And then I'm just going to make sure I'm straight and wrap this flap around like that. So here's a little tip-in page that we can install. This one goes on the left. So I cut this panel from this 4-inch wide panel from the left-hand side of the 12 by 12 title page. And then I trimmed it into these sections. And see, this is the piece off the bottom. Same thing, we're just going to wrap this. And this one installs on the right. So now I've cut a couple of just photo mats to go inside. These are 3.5 by 5 3/8. And I found these little border pieces that I thought would be so pretty. And what we're going to do is, they're just about the right width. So I'm just going to fold the sides over like this. And I'm going to put my adhesive on the little tabs that are on the back. And that way the photo can slip down back behind this little border piece. And you don't lose any of the room for your photo, but it really dresses up the photo mats. And then on this side, I just took this journal card and I cut it in half and I rounded the corners, and we're going to put these on our little tip-ins to serve as journaling spots. So before we add our embellishments to these tip-in pages, I want to add a magnetic closure because I don't want this to be flapping around. So I'm taking basic gray large disc magnets and I'm putting one right here because that's where I'm going to put my picture. And then this is a little trick that my dear friend Ginger Ropp taught me. You always put a little piece of score tape over that, just in case the adhesive fails. So that was a negative magnet. Now I'm taking the positive magnet. I'm putting it on top. I'm removing the adhesive liner. And then I'm going to fold this right over onto that other tip-in page and lift. So that's perfectly placed, and it will help keep those pages from flapping around. It's just going to make for a tighter finish. So let me just put the score tape on that one. And then I went to the 8x8 and I cut out these two sweet images and this border strip that I trimmed to 3.5. And I'm going to put my border strip down first because that's going to help me with the placement of the images. And I want this to go along the bottom, just like this. And what that does is it creates a ground for everything. It's like your pages don't feel like they're floating out there in space. And that is a good thing indeed. And it's good if they match up. Usually I use my ruler to do that. Okay, so I'm going to take my score tape off over here, and I've got this really sweet Cottage Life. And if you don't have the 8x8, you could cut down a 12x12 image. But I did have the 8x8, so. And then this little one that says my happy place. So sweet. So now this closes like that. Very quickly, I took a, let's see, 6 7/8 inch piece of my 12x12 paper. I scored it at 3 5/8 to form this little flap. And we're going to glue this down on this page. Just like this. And then the last page that we have for the 3 5/8, I cut this from the 12x12 just to break up all the blue. It's good to, you know, like have a little variety. And this is going to go in here. All right. Just like that. Okay, now we're going to cover this box pocket, and I've cut a 7 by 2 5/8 inch piece from my 12x12. I scored 5/8 of an inch on each side and 5/8 of an inch along the bottom. And we're going to do very similar to what we did last time. We're going to find, I'm going to turn this to the back side, it's easier to see. We're going to cut up from the vertical score line to the horizontal score line. Then we're going to fold. Come in and just cut the tiniest little triangle out of each of your tabs, just like we did before. This is very, very similar. All right, if you're going to ink your edges, which I am, and I'm using some Graphic 45 inks that I found in my stash, since this is Throwback Thursday. These are their decades, and this color is, I forget what, rouge or something like that. Antique rouge or something like that. Hold on, I'll read it to you. But I mean, really, any ink you have in your stash is just fine. And you don't even have to ink. Tea dye would also work really well if you have tea dye. This is Precious Pink. Sorry guys, Precious Pink. All right, so now, just like we did last time, we're going to turn it upside down. We're going to put our ink on our tabs. roll our little flaps in, make nice, neat corners. Okay. And then we're going to put our adhesive, especially along inside those creased areas, along the top, the sides, and the bottom. And this slips right over our pocket. And yes, it is short, but that's how I want it because I want to put a border strip along here. And let's take this pretty pink piece. All right, doesn't that look great? And let's cut this to 7 inches because we know that's what we need. Place our adhesive. And there's our finished box pocket. Honestly, I think this is all we're going to have time to finish today. I might work a little bit on this flap page, but I'm running out of time. I will have, if I'm going to get this out on Throwback Thursday, I may have to come back on Friday and finish this with y'all. So let me just think a minute. We might be able to finish this part, and then on Friday we'll just do this. Okay, so on this little front flap page, I want to take this pretty cottage die cut from our die cuts, but I want to tuck this. I took this rose die cut and I cut it in half, or roughly in half. I'm going to glue part of it back behind our image. It just adds a little more dimension to the page, but it doesn't really take up a lot more thickness or anything. So I like that. And I'm just going to put my adhesive down. All right. I'm going to put this right here. And it's okay that it goes over the side a little bit because it acts like a turn tab. And you can see I added magnets here as well to keep this flap from flopping around. And I will tell you, with this die cut material, it's kind of slick. So sometimes it moves after you've glued it down, and you might have to go in and just straighten things up again. But there we go, there's that. Then I took this other half. I want to take this other half. Isn't that pretty? And we're just going to take a little wee scrap of paper. It doesn't have to be big. Fold it in half to make like a little hinge. We're going to glue half of it here on the bottom edge, and then put adhesive here and glue this down to the page. And what we've just done is created a little tuck spot. Now I could have just put adhesive down, but it makes it difficult to fit things into the pocket. So I took this really cute die cut of the little gardener girl and stuck her in there, and this little postage stamp. And I am going to just take a little bit of glue right there and a little bit of glue right there. And that way my stuff won't fall out of the pocket, but it also doesn't get glued down to the bottom of that half a rose. So very pretty. That's really pretty. So I folded over a piece of string and just looped it through my little tag, and I've got this precious little enamel charm that I'm going to slip through here. And I'm going to tie a knot. And then tie a bow. Look at that. Isn't that adorable? So that's a really pretty thing to see when you first open this up. Okay, so on this inside flap page, I just took another one of our journal cards and wrapped it with a little bit of a border piece from the 8x8. Then I cut just under a 3 1/4 inch piece of the border from the 12x12. And we're just going to add gussets to the back of this and make a little gusseted pocket. So I'm just taking little scraps of my paper, just like we did before. And this one's going to go on the bottom, like this. And these little ones are going to go on the side. There's my trash guys. I guess they wanted to craft with us this morning. It's always something. It's always either somebody's lawn being done or something. Always. It's just hilarious to me every time I do a tutorial. So that was the trash guys, and the noise you heard before was the garage door coming up. That's my husband coming home from the gym. But we forgive him because he does all the beautiful music for these videos. So we don't hold it against him. All right, so I've done these little gussets. And now we're just going to put our adhesive on the flap. And this can go down right here. And you can tuck a little something in there. You can put a gift card in there if you want to. You can put a tea bag in there. You can put a tag, a bookmark. It just makes that page really fun. All right. Last page over here. Let me figure this one out. Okay, I'm going to try something on this page. We'll see if it works. This is a 3 1/2 by 5 1/4. I rounded the corners. And we're going to take off our score tape. Glue this down. Then I did another project, I'm not sure when, but anyway, I had this, evidently I cut the image out of the frame. So what I'm going to do, this needs to be five 7/8 inches tall. So I've cut this into pieces, and this is going to go up the left-hand side, and I've cut this to the correct height. And I just cut from the inside to the outside. And I'm going to try this. I've never done this before. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll be a fail. Either way, it'll be a fun learning experience. And I just took this corner and lined it up here. Then I measured over the 3.5 inches. And that's where I want the outside edge of this frame piece to go. So I'm going to put my adhesive here and glue that down. Okay. So now all I have to do is trim that outside part out. So I'm just reducing the size of this frame so that it fits our project. And then this piece, and if this is confusing, don't do it. This is the sort of thing, this is the sort of rabbit hole I fall down on a regular basis. I love figuring things like this out. And when it works, it's a glorious thing. So I just lined that up so that my everything lines up. See how good that looks? And then the last thing to do is, let me think. How do I want to do this? These two pieces I've got perpendicular, and I'm just going to cut like this. And look at that. So we've made a mitered frame, and I think it's going to work. It looks good. Let's try it over our mat. Well, looky there. That's a win, guys. I'm going to take it and glue this down. And it just adds a little variety and interest to the design, which is always fun. Oops. So see, if you don't try, you don't know. It might be a genius idea, it might be a flop, but either way, give it a try, because that's what makes these things fun. I'm probably going to add like some sort of a little postage stamp or something in there when I find it, but that's all I have time for today. I will come back tomorrow and we'll finish this little Mother's Day tea party in a box folio then. Thanks, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.